I'm Greg Wheatley, and my guest today on Inside Wheaton is Harry Smith. Harry is in the graduate school here at Wheaton College. He is a research assistant for Intercultural Studies and acts as a TA, teaching assistant for the department. He also is married, and his wife is here in that program as well. We'll find out a little bit more about that. But Harry, the first thing I have to say is you're busy people.
Graduate school is kind of demands that, but yeah, we really enjoy it. We're thankful to be here at Wheaton.
Yeah, well, it's good to get to know you, and thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Thanks
just
for
to
having me.
Get to know about what you do here. Tell me first of all where you've come from, where you went to school in your undergraduate days.
Absolutely. Well, I was not born in Waco, Texas, but I was raised there. I went to Baylor University as an undergraduate. I studied Greek and Latin and church music and a few other things while I was there. I really enjoyed my experience at Baylor a lot. Throughout, I went into Baylor wanting to be a doctor, but I realized that when you're making A's in all of your classes except for your science classes, it may not be a good idea to be a doctor.
You saw the Lord's will there.
Well, I think the Lord made it abundantly clear that was not the way He wanted me to go. So, thankfully, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of had bounced around for a few things, wanted to maybe do church music, wasn't really sure, so I was just taking kind of regular core classes, and one day the Lord made it clear to me through a conversation with my sister that I maybe should explore the pastoral ministry, and so I'd never really thought about it before, but I took an intro to ministry class just kind of see if it might be something I was interested in, and I wound up loving it. So, God took me that direction after Baylor. I graduated in 2010, and I went to Concordia Seminary in St. Louis. I finished with my MDiv in 2014. I had an internship at a church in North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. Really enjoyed my experience there. Grew a lot. I think every young person kind of has these not always realistic dreams about what ministry is going to be like, what their place in it's going to be. But I was very thankful for my time it was actually in a town called Conover, just outside of Hickory, because I think I really gained a perspective for what ministry is like, at least a glimpse of it for sure. And then went back to St. Louis to finish up my seminary in 2014. My wife we got married in 2012, and she put off graduate school for a few years so I could finish up my school. So my promise was to her was that I would let her get back to school. So she's actually in the clinical mental health counseling program here at Wheaton, and that's what she really wants to go into counseling. And so God opened up another door for me to come here as well in the Intercultural Studies department, and so that's where we are.
Well, and besides being busy, I mean, it sounds like a great match, because if you're looking towards some kind of pastoral ministry and she has a counseling degree, that's not a bad 1-2 punch.
Not at all. That she can act not only as a ministry partner in some sense, but also she can keep me sane, which is a good thing.
Right. You'll have to report back to us on how that's going in about 2 or 3 years, right?
I'm sure. Thankfully, she's very with it, and she's very on top of things. So
now you mentioned in passing, Harry, your musical background. Actually, you're a violinist, and you're doing some teaching in that.
Yeah, it was something I started to do in college. I played in a string quartet in college. Part of the way I help pay for stuff in college. But I started my own studio when I was at Baylor. I had about 12 students, and I would teach them, and I kind of I put violin on the back burner while I was at seminary in St. Louis, and it was something that I really wanted to pick up again when I got here. So I was looking for work, and I found an opportunity with a studio in town. So I'm just teaching one lesson a week right now, but I'm hoping to add more. It's one of the things that I really enjoy outside of school.
Wonderful. So you can add to your pastoral list music too. You guys can do it all between the two of you.
I don't think we can do it all, but thankfully, we have lots of gifts that the Lord has given us.
Tell me about. I'm told that what really is a passion of yours is actually church planting, rather than going into an existing church, I take it. Talk a little bit about that. How did that become a passion of yours, and what does that mean for you?
I think we are really specifically interested in multicultural church planting. I grew up, my dad is a college professor, and he's worked with people from around the world. He teaches Greek and Latin, so particularly maybe Europe area. But my whole life, I've been exposed to people from various countries coming, staying with us for a while. Had a chance to go to Italy, had a chance to go to Sweden, these sorts of things growing up. And I really fell in love with people who are not like me all the time. And I noticed that, especially in the churches that I've been a part of, I think that there's a potential for growth in the multicultural area, just engaging the gospel in ways that maybe don't always look like the American way. And so I think we've during my time in North Carolina, I think God made it clear that we should do church planting. We were working with a ministry called the Bridge Hispanic Mission, and it was ESL ministry, but they would do other things too. They would lead courses on computer skills. They would lead courses on immigration laws, these sorts of things, just for the Hispanic community to kind of be able to engage with the American culture in which they were situated. And through that experience, God really reinforced in us this desire to work with multicultural people and build churches in that way. So I'm still not sure exactly how it's going to look yet, but church planting is something. There's so many people in the margins. There's so many people that are the church is still yet to address, and I feel like there's people moving in that direction to address these people in the margins, and I just want to be a part of that, just in whatever way I can.
One of the things I remember reading not too often long ago, Harry, and I know just enough to ask you the question. I'm going to let you help me with this. One of the things I remember reading is that there's a new model of actually seeing church planting as evangelism, as opposed to go and find a group of people who are already believers and plant a new church. The church plant itself actually becomes evangelism. Does that resonate with what you're? Yeah,
the missional church movements is kind of that idea that you're starting cell groups in churches, these small groups that wind up they start worshiping together, but the idea is not that the end goal is worship together. The end goal is always evangelism. The end goal is always making new believers and watching the church grow in exponential ways often through small group cells, through small group ministries. So something I'm very interested in. I think there's a great potential there.
I don't know if he's your major professor but Rob Gallagher, right? And he's actually been in here on this program. So I know Rob a little. Amazing man, and I'm sure that you're learning just so much about multicultural issues from him. Talk a little bit about the program and what it's been for you.
Absolutely. I came to Wheaton because there was a really neat opportunity to engage multiculturally when I saw that they offered this department as a master's program. I thought that would be a really neat opportunity for me to grow professionally as well as personally. And I think what drew me to the department most was the fact that the professors have field experience, and most of them have at least 10 to 20 years of field experience. Dr. Moreau lived in Africa. He lived in Kenya. He lived in Swaziland. Dr. Gallagher's from Australia, but he's done work all over the world. Dr. Greener has connections in Rwanda. She has connections in Europe. So there's just these professors who've lived their lives, and they've lived out the calling that they're teaching to the students. And I thought, what a really neat experience to learn from people. It's not just ivory tower stuff. It's not just that they've spent their life behind a desk, but they've lived it, and because they've lived it, they really know, this is what is going to communicate. This is what we need to communicate to young people or people who are coming back just for more education as they continue to grow in ministry. What are areas of contextualization that we can? How do you contextualize the gospel in a good way, in a way that will draw people to Christ as opposed to lead them away from Him and within their specific culture? So, so many different classes that they offer, but I've really enjoyed the experience of the professors, the stories that they tell. It's really.
Anything surprised you about Wheaton when you, either positively or negatively? Sure. Anything just sort of rise up and shock you about Wheaton?
I think
no fair saying the weather.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say it has. It was a little surprising to me that the fifth largest snowstorm in Chicago history, and Wheaton doesn't cancel school.
Yeah,
I guess that's a little surprising because at Baylor they would cancel school at the threat of ice.
Exactly.
So,
right.
But I think I didn't. Thankfully, I came into this program not knowing what to expect, and so I think by coming in without. Well, I think everyone always has at least some level of expectation, but I was trying to curb those expectations as much as I could. Just let God do what God wanted to do with me in this program, and I think because of that, I've just been really thankful. I think maybe one of the things has been most surprising to me is just the wealth of experience that my professors have. I knew that they had experience, but there's the stories that they share, the places that they've been in Forum. I know that they have an opportunity to share their personal stories with us, and seeing maybe behind the curtain a little bit what life is like, what ministry is like, some of the struggles that they've had. Right. It's been really refreshing, I think, for me in a lot of ways. So maybe nothing has really surprised me a whole lot. I've been in, especially in Christian universities for most of my life, and so Wheaton in some ways is a lot like Baylor, except on a smaller scale. But just the passion and the fervor of the professors has really been a breath of fresh air. Where
do you think, Harry, the church is? I mean, you're looking at multicultural kinds of ministry, church planting. What do you think the North American church is most in need of?
I think you know what the North American church is most in need of, in my mind, it's the opportunity to take a step back and look at history again, and just say, where has the church been? From the beginning, from the Pentecost, the day of Pentecost, Peter preaches his sermon, Acts chapter 2. Thousands of believers come to Christ that day. That's the birthday of the church. From that day on, from Acts 2:42, the small groups, the meetings in the home, to the churches at Corinth and at Ephesus and in Galatia, and throughout all of the Roman Empire, eventually after the diaspora, and then walking through, back into the patristic period, and then getting into the Middle Ages. Where has the church been? Where have people gone? I think a lot of the times we try to reinvent the wheel. A lot of times we think, oh, well, this is a new problem the church has never faced, or this is something that we've never had to experience before. And I think maybe in some ways, I think that is correct, but in some ways, our forefathers have already done that. And I think we could, if we take a step back and take the opportunity to look at the people that have gone before us. How can we learn from them, and how can we watch the Spirit work throughout history? And I think if we watch the Spirit work through 2,000 years of church history, we'll be confident that the Spirit is still working today. There's many different things that the church is doing well and could do better, but I think maybe that's one area.
Now you're sounding like a church historian.
Well,
you switch your discipline here?
I am not a church historian by any means. I think what I have come to appreciate, though, I'm really bad with dates, and I'm really bad with details, and sometimes putting the story together fully. But I think what I've come to appreciate is the fact that God's been at work, and that's not something that's new. It's not something that we need to force God to be at work. And maybe if we do something the right way, then God will be at work. Or if we have the right worldview or methodology, then God will be at work. God's at work anyway, and He's been at work throughout history. So I'm not a church historian, but I think I've just seen the value of going back and looking back.
That's a great perspective and a great reminder, isn't it? Yeah.
I hope so. It's one at least I kind of want. I'd love to incorporate more of my own personal faith life.
When you're not studying, which might be a joke. Well, right? or teaching violin. What do you like to do? What do you like to read? What do you like to do for recreation?
Well, if I could play basketball every day of the week, I would do that. I'm trying to get back into it. I wasn't able to as much at seminary. I was actually able to play on my seminary's basketball team, so that was really fun. But I love playing basketball. Not the best guy in the court, but I like fighting.
Have you mixed it up with President Riken?
Not yet. I've heard that he's quite the basketball player, though. There's a group that I haven't been meeting with too recently, but I met with at the beginning of the year and just playing whenever I can. So I follow sports and reading. I actually right now am finishing up I just finished up the Chronicles of Narnia for the first time. I'd never read them before.
Wow.
So I'm not a lot of the times, because I do so much reading for school, my free time is not reading. But I do some of that. But I really enjoy following sports. I really enjoy working out and just spending time at home with my wife. So.
Where would you expect? This is a very unfair question, but fast forward 5 years. Where do you see you and your wife? What kind of thing do you expect you'd be involved in 5 years?
Okay. To be honest, I would be okay in so many different sorts of things. I think I think it's really easy to get super starry-eyed, and say, well, this is what I'll be doing, and I'll be changing the world in 5 years. But I just don't know if that's the case. I think what I would love to be doing is just doing a kind of ministry, whether that's at an established church or whether that actually is doing church planting, depending on what opportunities arise, doing something that engages multi-ethnically the people in the community I'm serving. So whether that's a large East Asian population, whether that's a large Hispanic population, whether it's a large African population, just whatever the case may be, whatever the demographic of people is in the community, just engaging that and figuring out who in the community is on the margins and what can we do in a courageous way. What can we do in a faithful way to reach them? So I think what type of church I'm at, I have no idea. That is something that I'm not going to get my hopes too high or too low on. I think churches do good work. Whatever church you're in, you can do work. You can do kingdom work. And I think whatever the case is, just figuring out who in the community needs help and figuring out ways inside the box, outside the box, whatever it takes to reach them. So.
Harry, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Greg. Good to know you, and I think if you represent Wheaton Grad School, it's a good place.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Harry Smith is in the graduate school here at Wheaton College, and I'll use this opportunity to say that if you'd like to investigate more about any of the programs at Wheaton's graduate level, do get in touch. Just visit wheaton.edu and look around the website. You'll find a lot of good information. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
For Inside Wheaton, I'm Greg Wheatley.